but yeah, just moving on to our next question. So how does like upskilling individuals, specifically looking at like the refugee camps and different populations, how does this help with their development?
Yes, that's I guess quite a key question for the why are we doing all of this? Because I don't think if there would not be any progress with the development, or if there wouldn't have any effect on the development, why would you do it in the first place? So the key idea is, as I said, sort of to level that playing field and to give them the opportunities also to learn. Firstly, to give them the opportunity to learn. Not everybody has that opportunity. And I think sometimes we take that for granted. Because maybe that's how we were raised or how we were brought up, or because the fact that we live in the UK and maybe, I've been to university, I have a PhD, this may be something I might always consciously think about, although I know it exists. So providing them the opportunities to learn is a very key part in any development, whether they're going to take that to a job later or whether it's just for their own personal understanding, to be more aware of their own strengths or areas of improvement or things they would like to do. Because sometimes, ask someone, what would you like to do? What would you like to become? 9 out of 10, what you say at a younger age is not what you're going to come up, what you end up in the end. But it is about, going over and going through that journey and having, other people or the tools, as I said before, the technology tools to be there to help you, support you in that journey. And so whether that links to an actual job in the end or not, it's sort of irrelevant. It's about their own life skills that will be improved as they go along. So in the end, that should lead them to be, I guess, more satisfied, although that's very difficult to measure, I guess. But you would like them to be coming out of the program with a better understanding of who they are themselves. How do they see themselves? And what are the strengths and areas of improvement that they would like to develop on further for them to reach their own goals, or to ability to reach their own goals, and having that first understanding. Because one of the things that we often do first is thinking about, what are your goals? What do you want to be? And then how do you go there? But a lot of people have not even thought about, what are your goals? Who am I? And by going through these sessions, especially if I'm thinking about the training program, that's quite key. There's a lot of reflection, a lot of discussions, and that just puts them in that right mindset, I think, in the end, which they then take, because that's quite key. These skills that we teach are not specific to our program. They're not specific to a subject. They take them with them for life. So wherever they go next, they can implement the skills they've gained through our, the interactions with us, whether it's with the training program or later on, obviously, when they interact with, for instance, Otto, as I said, it's a revision tool that they can use to revise maybe now for the exam. But later on, as again, also Otto grows and becomes more intelligent, it can also be used for other training purposes. It doesn't have to be for that exam that you're studying for now if you're in class, 9 or 11. So that's the key part, learning skills and developing yourself further for you to become where you want to be.
That's really good. Yeah, thank you. And out of interest, like, you might not, this is just a surprise question. So if it's just too rogue, like, just feel free to just be like, nah. But I was thinking literally the other day, and I only know this because I looked at a little note I'd written on my desk, and I was just like, I have been thinking about it. And I was thinking about what education is itself. And I don't know whether this like fits into your model of education. It has a lot more, areas to it. But I was thinking, like, the other day, I was thinking, what is education? It's almost like, it doesn't just give you, it's not just new information. That's just one small part of it. It's also organizing how you look at that information, where you organize it. Like, and when I say where you organize it, is you're organizing your mind to be able to process the larger picture of like a scenario and a situation, and put the new information in the right spaces. It's almost like creating like a little organized way of not just having new information, but also how to apply it, where it fits in the grand scheme of things. Is that, I don't know if you're dealing with this yourself in the project, but like, is that something that you've come into sort of into your considerations when you're like, what the definition of like, and how it's implemented, what education is, and how it's brought into reality in those communities?
No, definitely. I quite agree with what you said. And that's part of the way we set up in our organization, the whole training system from the start. It shouldn't be just recalling of information. It should be those other skills that you develop whilst you're learning, whether that is, organizing yourself, organizing your own thoughts, you know, being able to be on time, because if you're late, you're late and the session is already on. And all the other skills that come with life that are not being taught as a subject at school, right? No one gets taught. There's no course that you go on in school, I think, about time management. No, you learn physics and chemistry, biology and English, and all the other parts that are part of the national curriculum. But something like this is not taught. So that's what our initial, as I said, sort of goal was, to use all the other things that you need to know to become successful, whatever success means to you. It doesn't have to be money. To be able to give you that toolkit, so to speak, that toolbox that you can walk with, you can pick up, so to speak, and take with you for the rest of your life and implement it and apply it to the different situations that you as an individual are going to encounter. That's actually a goal. And I would say that's what real education, I think, is about. It's not about, I can give everybody a book and say, read this book, and next week you have an exam, and then you're going to sort of recite that book or recall that book. That's not education. That's just memorizing something. And if you have a good memory, or if you, rehearsed a lot, repeat it and repeat and repeat it, of course, you probably do better on the test. But education should be about these conversations, discussions, exchanging thought processes. And one of the things I say is, coming back to the disparity between different, communities globally, is that education is not a gift. Education should be, and that's why I say education is a given. Meaning, everybody should access quality education, no matter where you're from, who you are, how you've been raised, where you live, what your parents do, what do your community you live in. And again, I think that's where AI comes in and will be the, one of the breaking positive uses of it. Coming back to what you said before, there, positive use of AI and sort of the negatives that you hear in the news, mainly, I think, in the media, that likes to portray things maybe a bit more from a negative perspective. But I do hope that AI can make the difference, so that the disparity that is only growing between more unserved and served learners globally is only going to grow. And I hope that AI can try and breach that gap and make it smaller, so that in the end, hopefully there is no more unserved or underserved community when it comes to education.
Yeah, thank you.
No, that's so true. And I think it's by like resources like yours, Pauldy, that is the only essential way that communities can be uplifted and given these opportunities to develop themselves and others. And I think a key thing that I would like to mention as well is I think that's I was going to mention it before, but completely forgot. But it's true. When you see children truly engage with the task or truly learn things, and it's not necessarily like what Samuel's saying, they're not doing it just to retain the knowledge, put it on an exam, and then, forget about it. It's actually so that they can truly digest the information. They're thinking about it critically. That I think that's so true and important. And that's one of the things that I guess, with COVID, there were its benefits and some annoying things. But that was one of the things that I guess my lecturers now were saying that was good about COVID, because it meant that they had the opportunity to think about what they examined students on. So they were saying that some of our exams that used to be multiple choice or essay-based questions that you'd only get on the day, they changed to essentially essays that sort of like a 7-hour exam. You get the essay question on the day, but it's an open book exam, so you can use references. And they were saying the reason why they did that was because at the end of the day, they wanted students to actually think about the stuff we learned in class and to implement them in whether it's their own lives and the businesses that they might work for afterwards and businesses that they might start themselves, to use these resources and to think, well, I learned this in class, and I did a bit of coursework on it. How could I implement this in my business, or how could I implement this in the business that I want to work for? And I think that it's so true. It's moving away from this idea. And I think, like Samuel was saying, this idea of education is, I give you the information, remember as much as you can. You're going to be in an exam hall. like good luck, and more towards actually, no, I'm giving you this information. Like, I want you to truly think about how you can approach this question. And I know for me, I found it very funny because that exam that I had was the first exam I was ever asked, review your home life, and using these principles, think about how sustainable your home routine is. So as a family, are you sustainable? If not, what are the things that you what you should do to improve, and what are some things that you're doing really well? And I remember when I got the question, I was just thinking, and I was just like, wow, never got an exam question like this. But it really did make me think about what I was doing and what me and my family were doing to be sustainable, and some of the things we have implemented. So yes, I definitely agree. It's getting things and education essentially to be bigger than just the classroom. It's more about you're impacting students' lives and encouraging them. You're essentially encouraging them to think about these things outside the classroom, which is really good. But yeah, we've now come to the last question before we go on to our passing the mic segment. And essentially, Pauldy, we just want to know what's next for you. We've heard about the incredible work that OI is doing. We've heard incredible work that you're doing, but we would just want to know what's next for you.
Tough question. I think this is the most difficult one of all, because no one can look into the future. So what's next for me? What I hope, I guess, would be next for me is if I think about where we are now with OI, we're doing quite well. We have a great team, and what I would hope that happens in the next few months is to grow the team, get more people on board that are as enthusiastic about our vision and mission as we are, and that want to help us to use the technology, use the AI to serve more people globally and launch our products, and hope that you can, whenever this episode is coming out, you can download them on the Play Store or as a web app or as an API. So that many, many more people are using the products for their own benefit, whatever that benefit might be in their own opinion. So that is a very big what's next. But yeah, I hope that will become a reality.
Oh, well, I'm sure it will. And, like I said, it's incredible work that you're doing. And we look forward to seeing when that comes out. And be sure, listeners, when it does come out, we'll be sure to let you know on LinkedIn and Instagram, so you can keep an eye for that as well. But yeah, we're not going to essentially go to passing the mic, where I will virtually pass the mic over to Pauldy, where me and Samuel will be in the hot seat. And Pauldy's prepared a question for us. So I'm going to hand over to Pauldy. Could you please let our audience know what's the question that you'll be asking us today?
Thank you so much. And I love to be in this seat where I was now. So let's see. So my question for both of you is, where or how, depending on how you would like to answer the question, do you see AI being used in education in the next few years?
So I think me and Samuel were discussing it before, that we said this is a very, very tough question. But we really like the question, but it's very tough because I guess, like Pauldy was saying, and like Samuel was mentioning, there's this whole idea of how AI is perceived, especially through media, and how individuals essentially hear about AI or see AI can affect essentially how it's implemented. But I would say, I guess how I would see it, AI being linked with education, and we'll talk about more for it with our MC of the Month segment, is essentially it helps to, I guess, address some of the problems that come with traditional education systems and traditional learning. So like we said here, students learn in different ways, and you have to ensure that you're catering as much as possible to each of these students' needs. And like Pauldy was saying, it's hard for a lecturer or a teacher to do that in a classroom, especially, for example, a lecturer where you're dealing with sometimes over 200 to 300 students per class. And that's not even taking into account the different year groups you might be managing and the research that you're doing. So it's very hard to try and do that as an individual, but having an AI system that could help you with that would allow you to essentially cater certain lectures and certain modules to certain students, and to ensure that they're sort of getting the information and the resources that they need. So I would say that I see AI essentially making education maybe more effective. So not necessarily getting rid of, I guess, like what we said, people see when they hear AI or they think about robotics, they think that, they're coming to replace us and they're going to be taking our jobs. But it's more like what Samuel was saying about, it's not getting rid of people, it's for people. So it's making the experience better for individuals so that they can come out feeling more prepared, or more, I guess, feeling more confident in themselves and how they can essentially fit into the working world. So I would say that it's that. I think I guess first and foremost, I think it's making education more effective. I think secondly, I would say I think it would allow education to, I guess what's the best way to word it? I guess it would allow education to be more streamlined and allow students to know exactly, like, I guess it's like we were saying before about thinking about things broader than just the classroom, not that it's students just learning things to get information and then out the door, but it's more getting students to truly think about the information that they're being given. Because there might be some students who are really interested in robotics, and, them being taught by an AI or an AI system being used in their classes, whether this is for A levels or for university, will get them to think that, I'm learning about AI in class, but I'm actually now seeing what I'm learning implemented because I'm being taught by an AI. So I think it would allow students to sort of, especially when it comes to sometimes, I know whether it's secondary school, sometimes with university, there is that tendency for you to not necessarily also see the different streams that you can go into with your education and your degree, or with the things that you study. But I think that it would also enable you to do that, so you'd be able to see a wide range of the things that you're learning on your course implemented in different fields. But also, as someone who might specialize in AI, it would allow you to see what you're learning in class implemented at the same time as you're almost learning it. So those would be my two answers. But yeah, I'll hand over to Samuel. What about you, Samuel? Where do you think, or how do you think AI could be implemented in education?
Well, I think this sort of where or how is a good way of wording it, to be honest. I really do like it. And I feel like, I felt like I was the lecturer for the last part of the, I've been sort of getting you back with these questions, and you're having to come up with an answer, and I'm giving you a time limit and a word count. Obviously not, but like now you've got it back on me. I do like the where or how. So you taught me well to look at the way that the question's worded. And I think that like, it's sort of this like idea of like this laughable sort of robot coming to take, like Jeffrey said, coming to take not even your job, just you, just is going to like engulf you. And that is laughable. And I think that what AI actually is in reality is a tool. And I think AI doesn't change us inherently. It's like another way, it's like an armor or another tool that humans can use to make what we do different, So different industries can use different techniques in different ways. Like AI is like, it's the new robotics, but it's cloud-based, it's computer-based, it's whatever. It's no longer like I can dig faster. It's making everything more efficient. It's like an extra set of eyes, but times 1,000. It's an extra set of hands again, but times however many, because it's an unlimited number basically. And I think it's a tool that surrounds us and the skills that we were doing before. So it's not in education where it is everywhere, what can't it be used for? It's used for the teacher, it's used for the students, it's used for the school, it's used for policy making around it. It can capture the whole picture, and it can provide solutions. So I think the way that it helps teachers is it's like an extra set of eyes. It's a way of picking up on if students are falling behind. Great, you can figure out where, you can figure out how, and it's pretty simple. Like classes are getting bigger, just in general. So if teachers stay the same, then that is degrading experience. But if they're given a tool to make their teaching more efficient, then that's amazing. Like that is a way of really becoming effective. And how is it affecting the student as well? It's giving them better ways of accessing what they need and when they need it. So they can pick up, where they're not doing so well, how to learn more effectively. And I think I wanted to use the example, this is the good and the bad, like I was saying before, is in America, obviously the elections, it was well known that on Facebook, on whatever, people's opinions were being changed by algorithms, which is effectively a form of AI. So, okay, it's now changed worldviews, or world statues, as it is in Dutch, I believe, the translation. So it can change people's perceptions, and they, it can find how information appeals to these people, and it can supply it. But imagine if that's used for good. Imagine if now you're teaching to students and every student is interested in something different about your subject. Before, you've just got to give it all out. But if there's AI and it can work out what each student is interested in, where their sort of possibilities for like what they would be best in lie, it can really like send those resources and send that sort of skill of picking out the psychological makeup of people and give them the learning that would fit them best for their future. And, you know, you're almost getting to this sort of like utopian idea of like a society where people go to where they're most interested and where they're most skilled at. But this sort of AI system can pick out and give the resources to the right people who would be interested in it. And I think that would be amazing. So I know that that's sort of what happens in the world anyway, but imagine a system where it can really find out where your heart lies and where your interests are, where your strengths are, and it can let you know, and it can provide you with whatever. So I think there's a good way and a bad way of doing it. But I think, both the teachers makes teaching more efficient, but I think also it makes learning more efficient. And I think if it can be tailor-made to make people's lives happier, fit what they want better, and also, you know, guide people in the right direction rather than the wrong direction, as it seems to have been used for at one point, then I think, it's got a lot of possibility. So that is where, and I think that's also how. So that's my answer, basically.
Brilliant. Thank you both. I think picking up on what you both said, you know, being more effective, using a tool, I think those are quite words I would also associate sort of in an answer that I would provide to this question. Of course, everybody has their own individual thoughts and perspectives and views, which of course we need to take into account. But I think I would also say a support at the beginning. We're not taking over the world. We're not turning into robots and let them take over the world. But I think it can provide so many benefits if we use it in the right way. More tailored learning experiences that a human is never able to do, unless everybody is going to be a teacher, but then all the other jobs are left without any people. That's not going to be very effective either. So being more efficient, being more tailored, individual support, and also providing the ones who are providing education with more information in an easy format. We don't all have to analyze the data, look at the patterns, and then trying to do something with it and then come up with interventions. If we can focus on developing those interventions that then can help the learners you are working with, whether they are at university or outside, it doesn't matter which level or which subject they're at. If the AI can support us in providing those tools, I think that'll be a win-win for everybody. The learners getting a better experience, and I guess the people providing the learning experience also get a better experience. So I hope that will be a win-win for everybody.
No, I definitely agree. And I think that's true. And I think sort of like what Samuel, what you were mentioning there as well, I think that people do sometimes forget that AI is already being implemented in certain fields already and is having like a really good, result that's come from it. I think one example that comes to mind is a friend of mine told me this. And he basically was saying, so he loves all things to do with space and NASA. And he was basically talking to me about essentially that in rockets, and especially with NASA looking to go back to the moon and to start moon missions again, he was saying that essentially NASA rockets, I don't know if they currently still have it, but some rockets essentially have like an onboard computer that essentially the computer's job is to basically determine whether or not the rocket is going to explode before the rocket, while the rocket's basically in launch. So as we've seen, obviously that sometimes when rockets are launched, whether there are people in it or not, sometimes the rockets will explode before they're able to take off. And he was essentially saying that when there was a rocket that exploded and there were people in it and they all died, unfortunately, that they started to work on this computer system that essentially would evaluate all the data that it's getting and then make a quick decision to decide whether or not it should eject the module that's essentially at the top of the rocket where all the astronauts are, whether it should eject it and launch it off to keep the astronauts safe. And he was saying that it's been implemented, it's saved astronauts' lives, and it's that whole idea of effectiveness, because my friend was mentioning that when you look at it, like, yes, people might have their concerns of having an AI on a computer, or a computer on a ship, sorry. And he was saying that the fact of the matter is the human brain will never be quick enough to look at all this data and evaluate whether or not it should make this decision. But having that computer on board, he said, basically the astronauts get launched off in a distance before the rocket's even exploded. So they'll just be sitting in the rocket for 1 minute, and the next thing they know, they're off in another place with a parachute dropping them down. And he was saying that that's essentially quicker, like that's quicker than the human brain can think to evaluate all this data, but having that is a really good resource. So I think that that's another thing that needs to be mentioned, that AI is implemented in other areas, and we've seen that it has made these jobs effective. It's not gotten rid of anyone's jobs. It's not, caused a takeover and, we're not being ruled by robots. It's allowing individuals to essentially ensure that they're making effective decisions that are not only keeping, I guess, individuals nearby, so like with the rockets, not keeping those who are working nearby safe, but it's also keeping the people who are actually on the rocket itself safe as well. So I definitely agree that that's true, and I think that it's very important to highlight that AI is already implemented, and there's a whole host of fields that it's implemented in, and it kind of links to our MC of the Month section, because our MC of the Month for today's episode are Microsoft. Now Microsoft have a whole host, and I'll include the links on our website, to different articles where they've written about essentially how Microsoft is essentially looking to use AI and data to help change education, especially higher education in some instances. So for example, they were saying everyone's favorite thing of Microsoft Teams. They were saying that essentially Microsoft Teams, a feature that's there, which is Education Insights, is a great example of where AI is being used to help better education. So the data analytics there essentially can be used by educators to inform them of students' engagement, their learning process, also their well-being. They said that there's also a whole wide range of built-in tools and apps within Teams that allow teachers to interact with students in a more engaging way, sort of in a more, I guess, personal way as well, and gaining an overview of how well these students are progressing. So both at a class level, so the class as a whole, but also the individuals within that class. So it said one such tool is the Reading Progress tool, which is a literacy solution that enables students to record themselves while reading aloud. And it says that it makes a note to the educators of any words that students might be struggling with. It provides visual aids and reading exercises to help them if they're struggling with certain words. And it essentially says that, having this, it helps to save teachers hours of spending time to evaluate one student at a time. Now teachers and educators can essentially take a more personalized route to teaching by addressing students' needs individually, but also they can now group them together in a more effective way. They also talk about how essentially AI, like we mentioned here already, and I won't go into too much detail, that it helps to bring up other opportunities to improve the education system. And like we were saying here today about targeting certain groups and ensuring that AI can, ensuring that the resources that we use can essentially help individuals, whether they're in higher education or just it's education for young children or children in general. It can essentially help with that. And I guess to end it, they also said that this AI can be used to essentially help with skill development. So like what I was saying with our mic check, that, digital literacy is becoming the new thing. Digital skills and digital literacy is becoming an important thing. There's an article that that Microsoft have on their website, which talks about how AI is transforming education and skills development. So they were saying that there's AI has a huge wide range of possibilities within the fields of healthcare and agriculture as well. But they also specifically talk about how using AI can actually help to prepare students and improve their digital skills. So sort of like what we were saying before, the Teams resource for skills, for jobs, that you wouldn't, like I said before, typically expect there to be a focus so much on using digital programs or things such as, Microsoft Excel or Word or things like that to actually, know more than just the basics. AI can help to tailor exercises towards students to enable them to essentially do these exercises or to these training sessions, whether it's with schools, whether it's with places like Otermans Institute, or whether it's with other organizations or businesses to think widely about how they can use this to improve the academic interaction between both students and educators to essentially ensure that they have all the tools that they'll need once they either leave school or they leave university to help prepare them for the working world. So Microsoft are essentially our MCs of the month. And we've now come to the end of the episode. I want to say a huge thank you to Pauldy for being on the episode. It's been amazing, like I said, to learn more about you, to learn more about the OI. It's great to see the work that you do. And I think I was telling, I believe I told Samuel, but essentially it's really interesting to see how, you've used your field of knowledge around psychology to help you ensure that the AI has that human touch, because I think that's what we always try to say on the podcast, that you shouldn't feel you've got to go down that typical route, or you've got to go into the well-known route regarding your degree. You might learn a skill on your degree, or you might learn something in your degree that could be used to help a company or an organization, or even help you to start one that addresses something that it might not necessarily be the typical route for your degree. So I think it's really great to see that you're showing our audience and students that you're able to do that. So that, I think, thank you very much for being on the podcast. Go ahead. Sam.
I was gonna say, it's actually great. It's a great use of like psychology and the mind and absolutely everything to do with like it's just got so many uses. I mean, like I picked up obviously my degree as a postgrad, but there's so many different uses for it. You can go into literally any field, and I think like being able to apply skills, because everyone's got a mind, and being able to relate to like any field, like using psychology and everything that we do is a social thing. And I think that like we brought up with AI is also helping the social like situation. It's helping pair personalities. It could be used for like finding interests between two people and linking them together, or whatever whatever it is. But just you've managed to use the skills that you have and really find a very futuristic, in the sense that it is the future, and a very current way of doing that through your degree. I think it's really impressive, and it's also a big sort of sign to people out there that I mean, obviously I'm guessing you went into psychology, not thinking that you would ever end up in the situation that you would be in now and do the things you're doing now. I don't know why you went into a certain field but
I'll keep it very short. I actually studied physics, so I've never took any psychology module in my life. So I did neuroscience as a master's and then a PhD in cognitive neuroscience, that's where in my degrees the psychology came in, yes. But of course, always been interested in human behavior, but from a more neuroscience point of view. So I never did a psychology module.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's totally that's all.
I did mean that. I just, because it was called psychological sciences, I've just sort of merged it all in. But
logical connections there, I think. No, and I guess thank you to both of you. It was absolute pleasure discussing this interesting topic with both of you today, and I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. If anybody wants to reach out, I'm sure all the social media post tags will be there, so feel free to reach out as well, or follow Otermans Institute on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever your preferred platform is. Do give us a shout, and let's see if indeed AI will also enter the field of education, as it has already done other fields too. As Jeffrey said, many industries already using it. Why not education too? So I'll leave you all with that thought. And again, thank you so much for having me tonight.
No, thank you. And to our wonderful audience, it's been a pleasure to have you with us again. If you like this episode, comment and subscribe is always appreciated. If you want more episodes like this or more content like this, please make sure you subscribe to Patreon. If you click the link, you'll be able to see the different packages that we've got. And finally, just to say, it's been a pleasure to have you guys this far for season 4. Next episode will be the last episode of season 4. So make sure that you're around for that. And wish you all the best. Have a wonderful day. And we'll see you in the last episode of season 4, where we pick up the mic. So that's a bye from us here. Have a wonderful day and see you all soon.